I think in general we underestimate this next generation because I think they have huge hearts. They have such a capacity and a desire to see a different world. And I see that in my kids and in their friends.
For me, it really was about looking at my kids and, what is the story that they tell their friends? Am I living up to that? It makes me very acutely aware of, how they mimic what we do and what we say. And is that the man I want to be, that I aspire for, that God has created me to be?
How do we use our passions and the things that we love to do into fighting the causes and the injustices of our time? And so 12 years ago, we started doing hikes and climbs and all these different activities. And so the McGowans have also joined in with us as a family.
There were some crazy freedom hikes that I was, by no means equipped for. He had talked about the enchantments, and I thought, maybe that's something I could commit to, but it would give me an opportunity to tell people about Atlas Free and to just ask for them to come along the journey with me. And I reached out to my oldest two kids to see if either of them wanted to join me in it. And my daughter Coryn decided to come on board.
Generosity is something that I saw actively practiced by my parents all growing up. And so even if it wasn't overtly spoken, I saw that in practice, that they trusted God with their finances and were willing to take generous risks. And then last summer, my mom and I committed together to hike the Enchantments in Washington, in Leavenworth, Washington. So all of the money that we were raising wasn't for us to go on the trip. It was all directly going to Atlas Free. We had a lot of good conversations along the way. In the course of that, it really made us solidify our why. The issue of human trafficking is so apparent and horrific. There's not an argument against that. But I had found myself at such a loss for so long as to what I could do about that. And so to learn about an organization who primarily operates through frontline people and has the humility to not just enter situations and try to be the savior, but to listen to people first and to empower people who are already doing work.
The reality is, if we want to actually tackle this issue holistically, we have to align all of these pieces. And so we launched Atlas Free because we saw that God was already raising up leaders around the world to do the work, but many of them were isolated and alone and under-resourced and underconnected, and they were only doing one component. And they needed to be aligned with other organizations in the community who were addressing other critical elements. That if you have a place where survivors are being brought into freedom, but there's nobody holding traffickers accountable, you have to find somebody who can actually go after the traffickers. Otherwise, they're going to keep exploiting others.
The people who are in these situations don't get a choice to just opt out because something is physically uncomfortable. And so that was probably one of the reasons that I immediately said yes, even though this isn't something I would normally want to do. But yeah, we got up at 2 a.m. and we all met up in the parking lot, and then they drove us to the trailhead, and I think we were on the trail by 4, and it was a 23.1 mile hike. I think a 7,000 foot elevation gain, and 2,000 of those feet happened in half a mile at one point. It was probably more than half a mile, but it was pretty close to half a mile. It was crazy.
There's no easy way out, and you just have to keep putting one foot in front of the other.
No, I put one foot in front of the other, and that kind of helped to carve out the path. Yeah. Look how cute they are.
Making that emotional and physical connection was so much deeper for me in the process of going through 19 hours of intense hiking.
It was a good constant reminder of the discomfort that other people and the horrors that other people are having to live through are so vastly different.
It really just made it very tangible for me, going through the process, and made me more committed.
And at the end of the hike and everyone's fundraising, the group as a whole raised over $61,000 for Atlas Free.
For us, it's so important that donors know that they can be a part of this fight in a meaningful and transformational way. It's about joining a movement and making this cause a part of who you are and a part of your life. There's nothing more beautiful than when somebody gets to feel like they're invited into using their freedom to bring freedom to other people. And when you see what that looks like, both individually, but then when that plays out for families, that some of our biggest donors are families who have said this has become part of our family identity, that we want to be a family who uses our freedom to bring freedom to others.
I want to see in my kids that they don't take things for granted, that in whatever God burdens their heart with, which may be different than what he burdens mine with, that they would be active in pursuing whatever God calls them to.
Our media right now is so saturated with things that we can feel emotionally grieved for and moved by. And there's a lot of voicing things about the injustice going on in our country and our world. But am I all talk and not actually doing anything that's going to help? And do I think that some things are too small to make a difference, and so I might as well not do them? And that's why Atlas Free was so helpful, because it's like, no, I know and I trust the work that they are doing. Human trafficking is not something that has been resolved.
And the people who are organizing this stuff and will continue to exploit women and children and young boys, it's really sad. But I know Jesus has a heart for them. And I think the idea that we can do something to help them is pretty significant. My life could have just radically been different if my mom didn't get us out and bring us to America. If I would have been left in Vietnam, I would have been